Today's video, we're gonna talk about average lead closing rates by industry/niche. Is my PPC at fault, or is the sales process or sales staff that I have the problem as to why my ads are not actually generating a profit for my business, okay? Well, to be frank about it, if you're doing a two-step sales process where you're generating leads and then you got to turn those leads into a sale after talking to them on the phone or in person, if you're doing that two-step sales process, 50% of what you make from your PPC campaigns is from the ads and how you run the ads, and half of it is the sales process itself. Assuming you're not making the gross errors in running your ads. Like if you just never ran an ad for the first time, yeah, it's 90% the ad's fault. But once you get past the basics, it really is 50-50. Why? Because you could change your closing rates to where you could be closing at 8% or 35% just based upon how the sales process is structured. And I'm going to go into those details on what our clients are doing to get that kind of lift all the way through, which anybody can do this. But with that said, I wanted to go over what are the basic industry norms on the closing rates by different and with different niches, so you can kind of understand what's normal and what to shoot for, and when you know you're lacking, so you should go ahead and put these things I'm going to cover on the video into place for your business as well. I will go through, there's approximately 20 niches here, and the average closing rates that our clients have gotten in these niches, given that I've worked in the industry with at least one client in each of these niches, if not several, to give you the basic idea with an average sales process, nothing crazy, what the closing rates on the leads that we're generating from Google Ads is, and therefore what you should expect on your side if you know how to set up your ads correctly and you got an average sales process, and then of course what you can gain on top of that. Before we get into the content though, if you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we can get them a certain minimum lift in their profitability, basically in excess of the management fees that we charge. We are the only agency out there who offers any kind of similar guarantee, which should tell you something about the quality of the information that I'm providing you on this video. So with that said, getting into the content. As I mentioned at the start of this video, there's about 20 different industry/niches here that we've operated in with our PPC ads. And what I'm telling you here is the average closing rate, that is the percentage of leads that we generated through our Google Ads campaigns that turn into an actual sale, not an appointment, not a booking, but an actual revenue generating event. Just to be clear here. So we generated a phone call or form fill itself. Of those phone calls and form fills that we generated, what percentage are turning into a revenue generating event is what I'm going to cover with the different industries, and then the percentages I'm going to cover here as well. So starting with the local service side of the market, if you will, because I'm going to go through some examples of closing rates that we're getting in the national service side of or national service companies. So starting with foundation repair, and I'm going to go through what affects the closing rates, because you can get anywhere from 8 to 80% closing rates on your leads, depending on just what niche you're in. Depending if the niche has high competition, high price, high need, newness of the industry, and whether or not there's a customer fit or not itself. That is, does the customer often need what you're offering, or is it often not a right fit for that customer a higher percentage of the time? In the foundation repair space, we found about 15% of the leads that we would get from Google ad campaigns would close into a job, okay? Now, the reason for 15% is there's fairly high competition, fairly high price. We're talking about $10,000 or so for an actual service. The need is, though, high. When you have high need, the closing rate's typically gonna be higher because they're not gonna be humming it, thinking it over, and then therefore delaying their decision, and then ultimately maybe never making the decision because they've got time to think about it. They need it. It's not an emergency service, but they kind of need it somewhat soon if they're inquiring about this. The newness of the service itself, so people know what foundation repair services are. They're not a new service. It's not a speculative thing where it's like, do I even need this or not? And also something that when somebody, of course, calls to get their foundation repaired, it's something that they usually our client can fix. Not always are they a good candidate for foundation repair services, but in a good chunk of the cases, more than half for sure, they could be fixed. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to jump on it or go with the competitor or not. So that gives you a general idea of how high you could expect your conversion rate on your leads to be if you actually have a decent PPC system set up and you have a good sales process set up where you have high speed response on the lead. So when you get a form fill or you get a phone call, are you responding quickly? And when I say quickly, the best would be within 60 seconds. And you have the form fill, when it's filled out, immediately call your sales staff. Your sales staff is immediately put in touch with that sales or that lead, which you can do. Call drip is a service you can use for that, and you're just answering the phone right away, not leaving it go to voicemail or any of that stuff, which you're dead if you're going to do that in today's environment with Google Ads. If you have any kind of competition, because people are just going to move right on to the next person, you're done if that happens. Campaign refinement itself, of course, the more you refine the campaign, the more your closing rate's going to go up because you're getting rid of the junk traffic, but it goes further than that. Are you targeting long tail keywords? Are you targeting near me terms where people are typing in foundation repair near me? Because that's going to have a higher intent lead there coming from that keyword search than somebody just typing in foundation repair by itself. Okay. You also got knowing your customer. Have you done, and I mean the real research here, have you done the research as to what it is that people want when they're buying foundation repair or whatever you're doing? So in foundation repair, they're going to want to really have a lot of information about what their options are and consulted as to whether they do this, or they don't do this, what's likely to happen, what are all the options available, cheap, better, best options that are the most expensive. They want somebody who's knowledgeable dealing with them, not a heavy, high-pressured salesperson, if you will. They also want to know the likelihood of it working versus some methods versus others. They also want to know, are they getting a good price compared to all the competition? So as in that particular market, we provided all that. We also provided, if you go with other people, you're going to get this. We don't do that. We do this. And this is why it's important. And we got our 15% closing rate on a $10,000 to $20,000 job. So, but knowing your customer in a lot of other markets, it means like if you're going to sell a mattress, okay, you're generating leads for people that want a mattress here. Just to give you an example, knowing that people buy a mattress because they have back problems, they want to get rid of those, they want to sleep on their side, and that's the reason why they're buying a mattress, and knowing all these things up front. So when you do the sales pitch, you can ask them, why are you interested in this mattress? Oh, okay, well, this mattress is great for X, Y, and Z, for side sleeping or what have you. And then being able to work that into your sales pitch, knowing that, and also working that into your ad copy and your landing pages as well. So they're actually lined up for the salesperson when they come in and believe, what they're saying is believed. You also have sales ability. Of course, the sales ability or the ability of the salesperson is going to affect your closing rates itself. The difference between a brand new person who knows nothing about sales and a $200,000 a year salesperson, which would be like your top guy that you could hire, the difference in closing rates is going to be significant. We're talking same quality of lead. One guy could be getting 5 to 8% for foundation repair services. The top guy is going to get 25%. So in that, if you have enough volume, it would make sense to hire the best guy. But that said, even the best guy can only handle so much volume at the same time. For me, I'm going to work on my ad campaign and get as many leads as I can so I can hire the top guy. So the top guy is just buried in leads, and then I'm going to make that pay. But if they're sitting around, you're not going to make it pay. And of course, the other thing that affects your closing rate is your offer itself. First of all, do you even have one? And is it good? So with foundation repair, do you have an offer for them that's going to get them excited about jumping on this now? Urgency. Are you building urgency? Foundation repair services. We're offering 10% off for the month of May so that when they get in on the sales conversation, they know if I don't do this now, I'm going to have to pay 10% more. Therefore, I'm more likely to convert because I'm not going to procrastinate. Procrastination is the killer of all sales, if you will. If you were just doing something else, you could be offering mortgage services and you could say, guaranteed lowest rate on your mortgage, we'll give you a $100 gift card. Well, when they get on the sales call with the salesperson, they're thinking through a psychological hack, well, this must ultimately be the best one for me because otherwise they wouldn't be offering me no gift card if I was able to find a better rate. So I'm just going to go with this one. I'm not going to go shop around at 5 other different mortgage brokers to get the lowest rate because I'm just going to assume it's the lowest rate. There's a lot of hacks you can use in creating an offer to increase your closing rate as well, which is what we did. And we also did that trick as well for a mortgage company. But anyway, so those are the main factors that are going to affect your closing rate at the end of the day. You know, you can take a closing rate from absolute dog crap low 5% to get it up to 50% if you were able to do all of this correctly. It's a 10x difference. Now, to give you some other niches here, we have water removal services. So we're talking about if you have a busted pipe, your basement's flooding as a result, you hire somebody to bring the water out. In that industry, we're getting about 65% closing rate, which with that said, if you're wondering why it's so low, well, partially that's because not always it's a pipe. It's, you know, the basement's flooded, but it stopped flooding and they're going to call and they're going to ask some questions. Not every time they're going to go with it. It's very high, but not as high in some other niches because there's questions people ask. Are you going to be able to accept insurance? How quickly can you get out here being the big one? If you can't get out to me within 30 minutes, I'll just call somebody else. How you handle the call matters a lot. With that said, drain services. Now here's one where we'll get about 80% of the people to turn into a revenue generating event. Why? Because it's not a high enough dollar of a thing that people have to think about it very hard. And they know if they're going to call about getting their drain unclogged, they're pretty much committed to it before they call. So once they call and talk to somebody, once you're basically just saying, hey, what time can you come out? So you'll lose a few of them regardless, but not very many. And for that matter, I will tell you that it's very, very common. And I've heard other marketing agency owners do this to where they'll actually say that their clients, if you ask them their closing rates, they'll say, oh, it's 60, 70, 80%. That's like the most common answer you get. The reality is it's nowhere near that, okay, in actuality. And people just think they're getting better closing rates than they do. The main reason is they don't consider somebody who isn't already a laydown person as a good person to sell to. And therefore, yeah, you're going to get a 60% closing rate on your leads if you got somebody that's already like, okay, I'm ready to buy or virtually there. When it comes, to Google ads, people think all these leads are going to be like that. No, there's a bunch of people just asking questions at the beginning and you got to turn that into an actual lead, or they're considering 3 or 4 or 5 other options when they call. They've filled out the 4 or 5 other places. So drain services, kitchen remodeling. In that space, we get about a 15% closing rate on our leads, which in that space, the reason why the leads are closing at a lesser rate is because people have more time to make a decision. It's a bigger decision, so they want to actually get other quotes itself. And people don't have to get this done. It's an optional thing. So they can actually hear the pitch at 3 places and just decide to do nothing at all. And so there's a chunk of the traffic you're paying for that just never is going to buy from anybody. You got bathroom remodeling, 20%. Now, why is that higher than the kitchen? Well, it's something that's a little bit more, people are more sure about. It's also a cheaper overall renovation itself as well. AC installation. So air conditioner goes out, you need a new one installed, we're getting about a 20% closing rate, which you may say, well, that's pretty low for somebody who knows they need a new unit, but it's such a big decision that they're going to shop it around. They're even going to go online and see, after you tell them what it is that you recommend the XYZ unit, they're going to go on Google and they're going to start shopping that around. What does an XYZ unit cost? And then start calling other places. Can you sell me this XYZ whatever at cheaper than XYZ? AC repair. So we did an AC installation. If we're talking about repair services now though, you can expect about 75% of the people to close and do a sale. Why? Because it's not as big a decision. They know they need it. And so therefore that changes everything. We also got windows, window installation. In that market, we get about a 12% closing rate on average itself, which is low because it's a high ticket, tens of thousands of dollars. Ultimately, in terms of average ticket size, it is something that they need and that they clearly know they need, and it's a clear offer. It's not something that's like, do I really need this? Do I not need this? But because the price is so high again, they're shopping it around, that affects your closing rates. Hurricane windows. So to give you a direct comparison here though, between windows and a more specialty product, hurricane windows in Florida, which is where they sell at heavy, we have a 7.5% closing rate. So regular windows is closing at 12%, hurricane windows 7.5%. Why? Because they're more expensive. And people don't necessarily need them. So you're gonna get a lower closing rate. Okay, so that's a bunch of different local services and what closing rates we're gonna get. National services, we're gonna go into those next. And before I do here, by the way, if you haven't taken time to subscribe to this channel yet, you absolutely should. Click the subscribe button. You're not gonna find better information elsewhere online or on YouTube about how to make money with ads than you're gonna find on this channel. Why? Because I spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy at a firm to find out what works. And then I share it on the weekends, what works, what doesn't work. So you're getting firsthand information here from somebody who spends all their time doing ad strategy on dozens of ad accounts. So if you're gonna pay attention to anything and you wanna make millions of dollars a year running ads for your business, then subscribe to this channel. Furthermore, I've got a great blog on my site that I also keep at guaranteedppc.com/blog. That blog has step-by-step instructions and screenshots showing the strategies we're using to guarantee results for clients at our firm. And you could use them for yourself as well. If you just go to the blog and see what I have for you there, it's just as good of information that is on this channel, if not better. If you have any questions about anything I'm talking about here, or like want to know in your particular niche or industry what your closing rate ought to be, or what's average, so you know if you're doing okay, above average, know that you need to act here, leave me a question about what your niche is in the comment section, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. You can, by the way, ask me any other marketing, ad related question, doesn't matter what it's about, on the comment section. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel within that same 24 hours time. Typically, I love to do that just as a way of saying thank you and for helping the channel grow. I'll answer all questions. Okay, so going back into national services here, we had a product design company that helps you take an idea and make it into a physical product, going through the product design process itself, engineering process. In that space, we had about 20% closing rates. Why? Because a lot of those people have crazy wackadoo ideas and they're not really committed on the ideas themselves, even though there's not a lot of competition, and they're not going to be wanting to shop it out very many places. Why? Because it actually takes time to explain what you want to the person that you want to deal with. So you can't just get 10 quotes very easily. But because there's a lot of wackadoo people in there, the closing rate's less. Plastic molding, plastic injection molding, to be clear here. So if you need to make plastic parts at a manufacturer and take your design and make 10,000 of them or whatever part you have, we'd get 15% closing rates roughly on that, which generally speaking, people know what that is, and but they want to get the best price. And so they're going to shop it around. That's why your closing rate's going to be a lot less in that particular space. We have a virtual reality training services and programming services agency where, the company basically would, if you want to do basic safety training, instead of doing it in person, now you have these VR goggles that you can put on, and you can do the safety training in a virtual reality environment. And what they'll do is actually take your safety training, turn it into a virtual reality based version of it, and then you can now use that for all your safety training in the future. You could do other training, but safety training is what they mainly focused on. But our closing rate there was only 15%. Why is that? Well, clearly a lot of people who, even though they were typing in like safety training, virtual, reality training services, stuff like that. And so we're not just marketing to people on Facebook here, people that just never had the idea themselves. Still, at the end of the day, it's hard for them to wrap their head around it and decide. Not only that, but they have to get other people in their company to get behind it. And it's a hard sell. It's not like we need accounting services, so if it's not going to be you, it's going to be somebody. It's, do we actually need this? And that's going to drop your closing rate more than any. Call center services. So, if you need to get your technical support outsourced, we get about a 20% closing rate on those campaigns, mainly because in that space, it's going to be because they, A, want to know that they can get a decent price itself, being the main thing there. But B, also a lot of people calling are consultants trying to call for a third party to get quotes for them. And they're not serious. They're just trying to get a contract going so that they can middleman something. Because what consultants do is they go into a company and they say, we can help you be more efficient, da 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 da. And then they say, well, we got a quote from a company that does technical support and you could save this money because you could fire all your staff and blah, blah, blah. So that you get a pocket of people who's not serious. serious, and that drops your closing. That being one of the main ones. Now, matchmaking services. So, these services that cater to like rich people who don't have much time and they just want set up on dates. Professional matchmaking services. In that market, we had 25% closing rates, but it's a little bit higher though, because people know what that is already, and people that are responding, money so much not an issue for them. So it's just a matter, is this one that's the most credible that will give me the best results? So your closing rates are going to be higher, even though a lot of people will respond and you don't really know what makes them tick. And the salesperson it's difficult for them to pick that up. So closing rates not going to be, 30, 40, 50%, something like that. Database software. So we're talking software as a service here. So database management, optimization software, 15% closing rates on the demos that they were generating, demo requests that they got itself. And in that particular case, it's the best product on the market, practically speaking. But a lot of people that are inquiring about this saw the price tag of it, how much it was going to, and what it would take to get it implemented. That had to go up the chain, if you will, to get approved. And a lot of the times it just was never approved, given that you need to be a bigger organization typically to even want database management software. So that's the main thing that affected it there. Otherwise, it could be much higher closing rates. Life policy purchasing. So there's companies that just buy life insurance policies, one's cash value, that is. If you get sick and you need money for your health treatment, medical treatment. So let's say you have cancer and you need to pay for your treatment. You have a life insurance policy. You can sell that life insurance policy on the market. This company we work with which are called viaticals specifically, would buy the life insurance policies. And so if you're trying to sell them, you would go to Google and just type in like viatical companies, whatever. And in that market where they're finding people who want to sell their life insurance policies, we got a 10% closing rate. Why is it so low when they already know that they want to sell their policy? Well, and also because, by the way, it's hard to get multiple quotes because you have to answer a bunch of questions in order to get a quote ultimately for what they would buy your policy for and that you're eligible. But along with that, a lot of people aren't eligible to sell because they don't have the stuff required. You have to have cancer. It has to be at least stage 3 cancer in order to sell the policy, because they got to be able to collect on the policy when you die to make up for the cash that they're giving you up front. And if you're not going to die for 40 years, they ain't getting their cash out of that anytime soon. So that's the main reason why there. Now, collection services. So, people that don't pay their bills at a company, like if I hire an accountant and then I don't pay my bill, that goes to collections. They sell the invoice to collections. The collection agency comes after me, or they just hire the collection agency, like what we had in this particular client's case, to call and bother me to pay the accountant agency. In that particular market, we had a 30% closing rate, but the main reason is it's more so, ultimately you pay itself a percentage of what we're collecting, not you pay a flat fee itself, and then we do the calling and get nothing. So there was a small fee that you had to pay as a base rate to just work with them in general, but most of the fees were on the money collected itself. In some agencies, it's just purely commission only. But because it's not much of a decision in terms of cost, and people know that they want their money out of these invoices, they could close at a fairly high rate. Business loans. Okay, we had a client offers loans to businesses, 8% closing rate. Why is that? Because a lot of people weren't qualified for the loans, bottom line. And then finally, manufactured homes. So we had a business that was generating leads for people that wanted manufactured homes, which looked like log cabins, essentially a little bit. With that said, because the price of what you're selling is $100,000 plus, a lot of people would inquire and just never go on to buy, not from them, not from anybody. They're just thinking about it. They thought, they got a wild hair on their ass one day and thought that they were going to inquire about some, or they got pissed off that there was no houses available in their area to buy. So they wanted to buy something new and realized they couldn't afford it. So maybe we do this. And at the end of the day, that's as a result of all this, that's why your closing rate's only 2%. Now, the same thing, by the way, happens if you're going to be a real estate agent. The closing rate on your leads universally in that space, everybody will basically say it, is going to be like 2% as well. You generate 100 leads for people that are inquiring about a property at your, or wanting to deal with a real estate agency, and 2% of those will actually turn into a person who buys a house that you get a commission from. And it's just just because there's a lot of people that are really picky about what they buy. And a lot of people just don't buy anything at the end of the day. So there. But that gives you a really, really good idea on what affects closing rates, what your closing rates will be for your market. And if we didn't cover your market, of course, leave me a comment below. But with that said, your best bet to make more money in your business right now, probably in terms of effort put in, assuming you aren't just starting out in the last 6 months running your ads, it's probably making the leads you have now convert better and focusing on that. Why? Because the stuff that you do to make them convert better is turnkey. It's not a matter if it will work. It's just, will you do it or not? And the size of change you will get, that is essentially you could double your sales and the time it will take, which if you get it into place now, I mean, it's in effect now, you're better off focusing on that. At least once you've got a decent conversion rate on your traffic, because I would focus on getting more people to turn into leads first from your landing page design, then I'm focusing on the sales process itself. And then once I can't do that anymore, I've refined everything in terms of the sales process, I'm going to go back to my ads and then polish that up as the last thing, because you're going to get the best bang for your buck that way the soonest, if you will. But for that matter, if you want to get the ads working better, you don't want to focus on the sales process, or you have questions about how to set up your sales process better to get the return and do the things I talked about, you can reach out to me at my firm at guaranteedppc.com and I can coach you through the process on what you should specifically do, given I've worked with hundreds of different companies already and I kind of know what they're doing. Similar to that, I can tell you if you want us to work on your ads, what we can guarantee in terms of an increase in profit. We will literally increase your profit a certain minimum amount and not charge you until we've done that. This is what our agency does. It's our bread and butter. Nobody else does this as far as I still know. We also, though, sell ad templates. If we've already worked in your niche market, which these are all markets that we've worked in, again, we could sell you the winning ad template that works for your market. The ads, the landing pages, the campaign template, you copy paste that into your ad account and then boom, you get the results we did in a different city or country that you're in. And it's all fair game to use it because you're not directly competing with our client. And we could tell you the results you're going to get with it up front. Not only the closing rates, because we track that with our clients to make sure our ads aren't the problem, or maybe it is the problem because the closing rates are good. If we're not getting that is the amount of revenue lift that we're looking for on an ongoing basis. But we'll also tell you the ad, conversion rates and everything else. So, and we've worked in hundreds of different niche markets, so the chances are quite good. We've got the results in your market that you want. And or if you're looking to start a business, getting one of the templates and starting your business around the template is the easiest way to start a business, in my opinion, because you can literally just, because you have the template and that being the most valuable thing in most businesses, you could sub out the work, you could drop ship the product, you can sell leads to people who want them in your space and make money just because you have your hands on the template. You know, product or service will sell and you know how to sell it. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I also have those you can reach out to me at my firm at guaranteedppc.com and I'll tell you what we have as far as niches and results we got in those niches. With that said, here, your closing rate, as you can see, is as little as 2% or 80%, depending on your situation, level of competition, how much you're selling it for. Does people actually need what you have, or is it something that they can delay or not buy at all? Is it something that's confusing, that's really hard for people to really understand the value proposition in itself? And is there lots of different types of customers, many of which don't apply for what you have itself? And that'll greatly affect what your benchmark lead conversion rate itself you should expect from your campaigns that you're running on Google. I do have a very interesting offer for you as well. If you want somebody, the best ad agency in the world that you can hire to run your ads, work for you for free, and give you tens of thousands of dollars worth of ad spend to make your ads pop for your business and get them started, start making you money so you can start spending more on ads once they're working and scale a business up to millions of dollars a year for your business or millions more. We do this for clients at our firm in that we partner with companies like yours and we take a percentage of the increase in revenue from your business as a result of making this investment into your company. We've done this with several companies so far at our agency, and we partner with the companies long-term. We're equity partners. In exchange, we do everything in terms of your marketing for you, literally pay for the ad spend and the services and that is linked to managing those ads. And we'll just take 1 to 10% of your revenue growth in your business moving forward. So if you're doing $1 million a year in sales, we get you to 10. We agree to a 4% cut. We're getting 4% of the extra 9 million a year that you're now producing. And we're able to get you a bunch of results because we know what we do works, and we'll just front load all the stuff that we need to do for your company up front, knowing that down here, over here, we're going to make it all back and then some. So if you're interested in having us work together in that kind of, or at that level, of course, reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk to you about the opportunity. We don't work with just every company in regards to that, but if you got something that is fantastic, it just has weak marketing, weak advertising, we want to talk to you. So anyway, with that said, I'm going to wrap everything up with that. Thank you very much for watching as usual, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said Google Ads was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.